Hi everyone, JJ here with The Art of Value. Welcome. Well, today we're looking at Warren Buffett's portfolio, the GOAT, the greatest of all time investors, certainly over the long term, more than 50 years. Other investors have had better performances over shorter time frames, but Warren Buffett has been the GOAT over this time. Of course, we lost Charlie Munger, so that's sad, but Warren Buffett's still going, and other investors, his lieutenants there at Berkshire Hathaway. So let's see what they've been getting up to in this past quarter. I thought I'd dedicate a whole video to this, given his stature in the investing community, in the investing world. And we can see here straight away of Apple, which is really the last huge investment that he made way back in about, I think he started investing about 2016, 2017, and it's been a multi-bagger. So he bought it when it was a lot lower than today in terms of the PE ratio, that's for sure. But we can see that during the quarter, in this column here, that it's the percentage change in the number of shares held. I've seen news saying, oh, Warren Buffett's selling Apple. Let's be real here. It's 1.09% that they have sold, which is practically nothing. Considering we go over here into this column here, we can see it's 47.08% of the portfolio, of the stock portfolio. Berkshire Hathaway does have a lot of subsidiaries, other big companies, so stocks is just part of what they do. It's a financial fortress, an investing fortress, but Apple is a substantial part of that. I think it was over a $30 billion investment, and now $174 billion now after this multi-bagger that it's been. But what else has been going on? We can see here that 14.37% he's been adding to Chevron Corp, and I think it is Buffett. It's hard to know sometimes who is buying. Todd Combs and Ted Weschler do have, I believe, billions of dollars to play with, to invest with. I don't say play with, to actually be serious about investing with. But I think this is a Buffett, definitely a Buffett investment here. And it's up to over $18 billion, Chevron now. And below that, 1.77 of Occidental, Oxy Petroleum. We'll have a look at some of these more in depth because it deserves having a look at what's going on, whether these investments have been doing well and possibly why he's been buying them. So adding to that during the quarter. And then we go down here more, 23%. They've added to Mitsubishi Corp. So this is the first of the Japanese companies that don't show up and say Dataroma has only US stocks. He has been buying heavily in Japan. I mean, it's made news, but it's a bit underrated, these investments. They've been doing really well, as we'll see. And he's been looking at Japan for a long time. I remember that Monish Pabrai said that he visited Buffett quite a few years ago now, and Buffett had a stock book of Japanese stocks on his desk at the time. So he's been looking at Japan for quite some time. It's definitely been a cheap market, really, for the last 30 years, more than 30 years. Japan market since their double bubble. I say double bubble because it was a real estate and a stock market bubble at the same time, which is fairly rare. Mitsubishi Corp, he added 23%. I think this is Buffett again, becoming substantial investment, 5.7 billion worth. And below that is Mitsui, which they actually added 18.64% again. So that's 4.6 billion there again. And Itochu Corp below that, another 20% added there, and that's 4.6 billion. So these are pretty substantial investments. Buffett and Berkshire have to invest in big companies generally, unless it's, say, Todd or Ted, who tend to invest in smaller things sometimes. But to move the Berkshire needle, it has to be big investments in the multi-billions to even move the needle. Buffett's talked about this, the bigger the wallet, the harder it is to have a good return. And he's managed about 19% over more than 50 years. And so to really keep that up, they have to make some massive investments just because of the amount of money they have. And if he had a few million, he'd be investing in a different way. He's actually said this. He thinks he could get about 50% a year compounding, and he would be looking off the beaten track, at stocks that are smaller, that nobody's looking at, not the popular stocks, just off the beaten track. There's probably special situations. That's not the end of the Japanese companies. There's more of them. He really has been investing big in Japan. And this one here, Marubeni Corp, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, added 20 0.5% to that, and that's just over $2.3 billion worth at this point. And Sumitomo Corp here adding 23% again in the quarter, and that's just over $2 billion. So really significant investments in Japan, and he obviously thinks that that market is finally turning around after 3 decades, and they have had a good return, and we'll look at that. Now, if you're getting value out of this episode so far, I'd really appreciate it if you remember to hit that like button to help the algorithm, the almighty algorithm, to spread it to more people, because that's what we want. Thanks. But just now, let's keep going down the list. We can see here that Liberty Media Corp just added 0.39% to that. Paramount Global, he sold down 32.44%. He was asked about this in the last shareholders meeting about Paramount, and he basically laughed and said, we'll see. He didn't seem like he had a lot of conviction in that at all. And I just wonder if it was actually his investment, or whether it was, somebody else at the company, Todd or Ted, who invested in that, because it was, less than $1 billion, which is kind of smallish for Berkshire. Then we have more Liberty Media Corp at 0.39%. And below that, we have HP. So it was a bit of a mystery why he invested in this. It was a surprise. I think this was Buffett as well. And he sold down 55.63%. And it's now $687.6 million worth. So it was pretty much over $1 billion. 315.6% Sirius XM holding, and that's a $220 million investment, so not huge there. But adding to that, and 100% Northern Electric PLC. Now I want to tell you about this well-known Warren Buffett book that I'm reading again. It's pretty much all have a significant writings, Warren Buffett's writings over the years. He's been pretty open about how he invests. He pretty much lays out how he invests and runs Berkshire Hathaway, so it's really worth reading this one. If you're going to read any Warren Buffett book, this is pretty much the go-to. It's arranged in different topics and different subjects, so you can read a part at a time or read the whole thing. So you want to learn something about Warren Buffett in a particular subject, you can easily find that and read most of the things that he's said about it over the years. This is by Lawrence Cunningham, and he's the leading writer on Buffett, really. So if you haven't read this book yet, I definitely recommend it, and I'm going to put a link in the description, a referral link if you haven't read that already. I would really highly recommend it. I'm recommending books because I really think that reading investing books by the top investors especially is a really good way to learn investing. In fact, it's a necessary thing to do, just to keep reading. It's a key to good investing. On Dataroma Q4 2023, we can see that some things were sold completely, 100% sale of D.R. Horton, and 100% sale of Markel Group and Stone Co., which was a smaller company. I think that was probably Todd and Ted. We'll have a look at that, but finally deciding to sell that. That's actually one that Kathy Wood also owned, which is, strangely, that Berkshire Hathaway owned that as well. And Globe Life Inc., they've sold that 100%, which is just a small investment, but those are the sales. And selling out of Markel, which is often known as a baby Berkshire. They have this insurance group as well, but then they are pretty much emulating Berkshire in a number of ways. But Warren Buffett, obviously, or Berkshire Hathaway, thinking that it's actually not as good as Berkshire or not worth it for the long term at this time anyway. Their insurance operations haven't been going that well, especially for the last quarter. Tom Gaynor is the CEO and controls the investing there, so that he wouldn't like to see Warren Buffett of selling out there. I think that would be disappointing for him, and he didn't sound happy in the earnings call. He said, we've got to do better in the insurance group, but the rest of it's going okay. But Warren Buffett obviously thinking it's not good for the long haul at this time. Okay, let's have a quick look at some of the individual holdings so we can get a grasp on what's been going on with the stock. So this is what's needed for Berkshire to move the needle, multi-billion-dollar investments that go up and be multi-baggers, and that's what Apple was, and it looks like these are similarly doing very well. So really, Buffett doing incredibly well out of these Japanese investments so far. Now, I've started the Art of Value Patreon just for the price of a cup of coffee each month. We're talking about stocks more in depth. So I'll put a link in the description if you want to check that out, and see you over there. And this is BYD. Of course, it's turned into quite a rival to Tesla in EVs. And Buffett and Berkshire have had this for a long time. Charlie Munger talked about this too. They went to China to check it out and thought the management was great. This was kind of at the beginning of EVs, or before that. They were interested in the company before it made EVs. In fact, Charlie Munger talked about how they warned the management not to get into the automotive industry because it's so difficult and not a great industry, but they did, and they've done well out of it. Now, if you're watching this video on YouTube, I'm going to put a link here to a playlist of previous Super Investor portfolio update videos that I've made. And thanks to everybody for watching or listening to this one, and I'll see you in the next one.